Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hot Seat Business Edition. On the Hot Seat today, we've got Shiraz Akbarally. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for having me.
And Shiraz, you are part of one of the biggest Sri Lankan conglomerates, the Akbar Brothers, and you've been in the tea export business for 50 years and more. You've also now ventured out into power and a whole bunch of things. Before we get into it, to talk about you and coming into the business, what has that process been like for you?
Yeah, so I graduated in Australia about 10 years ago and I joined the business straight away. The first year was a lot of learning. So I was thrown into tea tasting, into the factory operations, and I really got a solid understanding of where it's from. I had the chance to work with my grandfather who, before he passed, he was in the tea trade for over 75 years. So in this sort of industry, it's like wine tasting, even tea tasting is sort of an art, part science. So getting a chance to learn from him was something I couldn't pass up.
Right, and speaking of which, coming into what is the legacy of the Akbar Brothers, did you ever feel that pressure? Like where you're stepping in and, of course, you've got your family to support you and this huge industry that you've built. What was that like, coming into it?
Yeah.
And how long ago was that for you?
So I'd say in the first years, I didn't have much visibility into the business. I was pretty much in learning, getting to understand the operations, things like that. But then I moved, as you do in a career, you go into different roles, you get more visibility, you move higher up, and then you sort of learn to understand pieces that you didn't see earlier. I'm part of the third generation in the business. I'm currently involved in group strategy and new businesses as well, new business development. And I also oversee operations in the tea sector.
Right, so this is your role now.
Yes.
Because for a long time, you're also involved in the part of making it more automatic in the innovation sector. Are you still involved in that respect?
Yes, so I'd say I'm less operationally involved and more involved from a supervisory role. So a lot of these projects involve me seeing what the best practices is all around the world. I think as in any industry, you have to benchmark yourself, especially if you're competing globally, you have to benchmark yourself against the global competitors.
Right, and for tea, essentially being one of your main businesses, what other countries give us the toughest competition right now on the global stage?
So in terms of what Sri Lanka is famous for is black tea. The main producers of black tea are India and Kenya, which are the main exporters besides us. We have advantages and disadvantages over them. Our product is considered a premium quality. We have higher prices realized for our tea, so the farmers get a better price for the tea as well. On the flip side, our costs are higher as well. So this is sort of a delicate balancing act that we keep having to do.
Right, and Akbar Brothers being one of the largest exporters, about a fifth of all our tea is exported through your company. What have been some of the biggest challenges with the pandemic? Was it labor, people getting sick, with the global markets, and and let's be honest, a lot of buying power has also gone down a bit.
Yeah.
But what has been the most challenging part for you?
So for us, the first most challenging thing was getting back to work safely. I think trying to run a business where so many people are involved hands-on. I think the tea industry employs, by some estimates, 10 to 20% of the population of the country. So from the tea producers to the transport to the packers to the exporters. So with so many people involved, trying to be safe and navigate that was quite challenging. We were the first COVID-19 safe controlled environment certified by SLSI. We did a lot of work in that to bring that back up to speed.
Yeah.
But one of the best things about the pandemic, I think one of our biggest struggles was also trying to go by without having to lay off any staff and managing that as well, because we were obviously closed for a first bit during lockdowns and things like that.
And also, we'll get back to one of the big morals of the company, that is someone from the family has to approve every consignment. But before that, you said you had the chance to work with your grandfather. And coming into tea, what was if you could point out some of the key things you learned from your grandfather, or like the golden bits that you're so grateful for now, what would that be?
I think there's one quote which sort of sums it up. So what he said when you come into the business, he said, look, any business you take risks. you may lose money, but always know with hard work you can get money back. However, he said if you lose your name and your reputation, that's something you can't get back. So that's something we value a lot, honesty and trust in our relationships with all stakeholders.
And getting back to like a family member always, checking every consignment. I think that's beautiful, by the way. How do you manage that? Is that still a thing? Is that something you do?
It's still a thing. Yeah. So I've actually moved out of tasting all the close blends, as we call it. One of my cousins actually has taken over that role at the moment. But it goes back to the trust and honesty, right? Like if we are guaranteeing a product for something that everyone is drinking, we have to know that it is what they want, what they're paying for, right? So how do you know that unless someone trusted is doing it? So
right. How do you manage a healthy? Well, by the way, you look great. Wow, you graduated.
Thank my parents for their genes.
How do you manage a healthy work and life balance?
I think that's something everyone does have struggles with at times. So usually for me in the morning, my routine is I used to get up and exercise, but more recently with so much happening in the world, I've been taking my exercise time up for keeping up with world news. So I mean, there's a lot more volume of news going on locally and internationally. So that's sort of eaten into that time. But I do prioritize meeting family, meeting friends. Our family is very big. So usually meeting all my cousins, nephews, nieces all takes a fair bit of time.
Okay. And what do you personally enjoy doing? I mean, aside from being the businessman, we know you like golfing. Formula One. Yeah. What are the things you enjoy doing in your personal time?
So again, you've touched on most of those. I think playing sports. Another thing we're passionate about is restoring classic cars, like old cars that are destroyed. We sort of rebuild them from scratch, and that's something me, my brother, and my dad are very passionate about. So.
What sort of cars?
Oh, so these are pre-1960s, 1950s sort of cars.
Yeah.
So you find them they require a lot of work, but the final product after a couple of years is worth it.
Yeah. And speaking of which, now we are really intrigued by the habits of really successful people and the kind of things that they practice. There's things about the 5 a.m. club. Then there's that whole thing about you go home, you switch off your phone. What time do you typically start your day?
So my dad has drilled into us to be early birds. Okay. So we're usually up by 5:30 every day. And that's when your process starts. Like I said, I keep up with things, maybe do a bit of exercise. We're at the office by about 8:30 and the day goes on from there.
When do you call it a day?
So,
or do you ever call it a day? Are you still on the phone when you go home?
Yeah, you do have to take calls at all hours. I think being in a relationship business with clients, working in different time zones, you're never off the clock per se, but we try and have family dinner by about 6:30 every day.
And that's your thing,
that's family dinners. We try and have family dinners,
Now, for you also coming from such a strong business background and a business family, did you ever feel like you were forced into being a businessman? Like, did you ever have a choice to like do something else, like in a different reality?
Yeah.
Were you an aspiring artist or something, or do you still do it? If there's anything you have not been able to do, is there such a thing?
So business is in our family's DNA, I feel like. And I'm really lucky, family and the support system has been so strong. They will never, they will never actually force you to do anything. Yeah. But I mean, with this, I felt there was great opportunity, like I said, to work with my grandfather, my parents who have done so much and like accomplished businessmen. I think it's great. In my past life, I was an engineer. That's what my background was. And I think I've been able to satisfy a bit of my curiosity within that through the business as well, especially regarding like processes, operations, things like that is what I enjoy.
So you've been able to enjoy it?
I've been able to enjoy, and it's been great.
But the family was never like, when you were a certain age, like, Shiraz, what's your hobbies? Make sure that...
No. We've grown up in and around the business. So it's been quite easy to settle in.
Yeah. Now with the Akbar Brothers venturing out into a lot of different things, there's real estate, power and energy being another one. Tell us, in your opinion, are you involved in that wing of the company as well? So
my brother handles that more often. He's on the board of directors. We recently listed the company, so it went public as of last year.
Right.
So from then on, they have a very strong team that is more than capable of managing the whole operation.
But from your opinion, with the current crisis that we're having power-wise, do you think that we have really underexplored renewable energy in Sri Lanka, given that we have so much sunlight?
Yeah.
And we're so reliant on fuel.
Yeah. So we're really blessed actually. We have a lot of sunlight, we have very good winds near the coast, we've got a lot of really great hydropower as well during the rainy season. So I think the issues are more along the timing of that, because when the sun in the nighttime, there's no solar energy. So you have to balance each sort of power generation system, which I think it is. And there's a few back-end things involved, like grid capabilities and things you have to upgrade really to manage to do it. But I mean, we have really large amounts of renewable energy installed. We do have potential for a lot more. So we'd like to see those sort of developed as well in future.
Do you think that we are maybe at a time now where we should start exploring into nuclear energy?
Well, that's quite controversial. I mean, I'm no expert in nuclear. I think it's very risky. So you have to have more than anything the experts in the field to tell you details about it. But also, I think you have to weigh the risks to ask us as well, whether you're ready for it and whether you also have the capability to install something like that. I think is something we should look at for the future. We should keep all options open, you know, always evaluate everything on its own merit.
Yeah. So Shiraz, also being involved in such a large way in businesses in Sri Lanka, you're scoping the industry to see what's up and coming. What do you think are some of the new and up and coming, the emerging exports potentials for Sri Lanka right now that we're going to see boom in the next few years?
So I see already, you see a recent boom in the IT and knowledge-based services. I think those have been doing a really good job in the last 5 to 10 years. And also I see a couple of companies, smaller ones, that are starting up in high-tech industries. So sensor manufacturer, things like this, you know, they're doing some really great high value-added stuff, which is I think where we should be moving into.
And Shiraz, speaking about emerging Sri Lankan exports and other businesses that we can do as a country, when do you see us recovering from this current economic crisis, like, realistically?
So I think if you're looking in terms of planning, you have to always plan for a long period depending on the situation you're in. There are a couple of things that I think we will have to go through as a country. There are unpopular things as well that will have to be done. But I see, we can come out stronger from this. Any problem has to get bad before you can come up with a solution. So we have seen a really bad problem, but now we must look forward to solutions and how to get over it.
Right. And before we say goodbye, what's been the most difficult part of the journey so far?
I'd say it's like a ride. It's like a roller coaster, right? You have sometimes where it's you're freewheeling, going down, enjoying the ride. Sometimes you're climbing up and it seems like an uphill battle, but I can't say there's too many ups and downs in both that.
And for you, Shiraz, as part of the Akbar Brothers legacy, what's your era? How are you going to define that?
I think that is something that I look forward to, working with the rest of the family as well. I don't see it being an individual, my legacy. I think it's a shared legacy with our whole family, which is the beauty of a family business, really.
And what is the goal? How are you going to define this next step?
Well, we've been in business 52 years. We're hoping to be in business 52 more years.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Shiraz Akbarally from the Akbar Brothers on the hot seat, business edition. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Lloyd.
Thank you. Great. We wish you all the success. And if you like the video, be sure to share it with your friends. Leave a comment down below.